Hello, I'm Dave Koji, and welcome to the Pickleball Lounge, episode 7, where I speak to influential members of the pickleball community about their involvement and experience on and off the pickleball court. Before we begin, I'd like to thank Astria Pickleball for sponsoring this episode. Head over to astriapickleball.com for their innovative paddles and gear. Today's very special guest is Pickleball Will. Will is a pickleball player and a pickleball content creator. If you're not seeing Will crushing a 4.5 game, you can catch him co-hosting the Pickleball Studio podcast with Chris Olson. He has also his own pickleball channel under @PickleballWill, where he discusses everything pickleball. You can also catch him on Instagram, also @PickleballWill. Will, great to have you.
I mean, great to be here. That was quite a generous intro for me.
So how did you get started in pickleball?
I think like most people finding it during the pandemic. So I mean, I played a lot of tennis, and I used to play with my uncle like all the time. Some of him, with me and some of his buddies. Sometimes my brother and my cousins join in. But uh, during the pandemic, we were just trying to go to some courts and play some tennis. But around the Washington D.C. area, Northern Virginia, they just like chained up all the courts during the pandemic, so we didn't have access. So he just called me one day and was like, "Hey, Will, I got a six pack," and he has a pretty large driveway, so he taped up some lines. And he had a net, and that's kind of where I first started playing. I mean, I did play it once before. I saw it at a community center, and I hit the ball around, but I was there playing basketball or something else. But I saw it and I found it kind of intriguing, but I don't know. I was a hardcore tennis guy, didn't think much of it. But I also didn't, hate on it or anything. But when my uncle brought me over and I was like, oh yeah, this is a lot more fun than what I remembered. And then I really, like I said, I still didn't think much of it, something kind of to do and pass the time. And then it wasn't until I was driving by a town, like the next town over, and they had 10 dedicated courts and it was packed. And I thought it was a tennis court at first. And I was like, oh, why are all these people over here? So I drove by and I was like, oh, this is the first time I've seen dedicated pickleball courts. And these people were good. And luckily enough, somebody was like, hey, we need a fourth. Did you want to play? I didn't have a paddle or anything, but they gave me one and I just started playing. Yeah, I came back like the next day and the next day, and here we are.
It seems like pickleball, out of all the sports you play, it's the one where you can become immediately addicted to. It's really bizarre.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, is it really bizarre?
I
I
don't know.
think no, because I mean, it is, but like it's because the skill floor is just really low. The skill ceiling is, I would say, like I don't know if I'd call it high, but it's higher than what most people think, and it's climbing steadily and rapidly now. I don't think it's as high as some of the other sports out there right now, but it is climbing and climbing rapidly and at a quick pace, I would say. I don't know if it'll ever get to like the level of, I don't know, tennis, table tennis, badminton and I don't know, other sports like basketball or whatnot. But yeah, I mean, I think that's why. It's because the skill floor is just fairly low, you know?
Yeah, and it's really, if you're a competitive person, like I'm a competitive person, right? I mean, I try to have
Mhm.
fun, but I have fun when I'm competitive. And so it's
Yeah.
great to play with other players like that. But the great thing about the game is that you don't have to be competitive to enjoy it. You can, it's a social thing. I've been a lot of great friends, as I'm sure you have as well, playing the game. Is
Of
that one of the
course.
aspects of the game that you love, the social aspect and becoming ingrained in this culture?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think the social aspect is the number one, best thing about the sport, and it's the best thing for like different reasons for different people, right? So yeah, you can be social with people like playing on the court because you're so close. You can talk to them or whatnot, trash talk, whatever you want to do. But you also meet so many different people from different walks of life. Some people have never played, paddle sport before. I've met volleyball players, racquetball players, badminton players, table tennis, soccer, basketball, like the whole gamut. But not only that, but because you get so many people that play different sports, you also get people from all different walks of life. I mean, I've met a professional poker player, met a guy who's like three-time, cancer survivor
Wow.
who plays in my hometown. There's some very interesting individuals out there when that you never know who you're going to meet when you're on the court.
What do you think contributed to this explosion in pickleball? I mean, I know for me, I started playing about a year ago, and I just fell in love with it. I created a pickleball.
Yeah.
I never was on Instagram. And I created a pickleball Instagram, which was crazy for me. And then I just love it. I'm so passionate about it. What do you think contributed to this like just outrageous spike?
Let's see. I think it was just really a perfect storm of things, to be quite honest with you. I'm not gonna lie. I think before the pandemic, it was probably rising rapidly, but like many other industries and many things, I really do think that the pandemic really gave it, I guess a steroid
All
shot,
right.
like or whatever in the arm because people were cooped up, people were trying to find things, and then people are at home, like watching videos or whatnot. There's so many things to kind of discover now that you're not busy trying to like potentially go to work or going out or whatnot to occupy your time. So you are just at home sitting around. You're bored, you're trying to find something to do, right? And then you probably see pickleball or one person, finds pickleball. And because it's so easy just to get a net and to get paddles and to go have fun, like you can tape up a court like in your driveway. If you have a driveway big enough for just tape it in a parking lot or something and you can kind of go play. And because it's so easy to play and to enjoy right off the bat, like word just spreads and it just catches on like wildfire. And it's just kind of like one of the things to do. Like what do you do when I don't know, you're not at work or you're
Right.
not at home, like watching TV or YouTube or Netflix or something. Like, yeah, you want to, you know, do something active. People used to like, go to the movies, go to the mall or whatnot, but you want to have a hobby, right? And pickleball is that one thing that everybody can do and like will do, right?
Yeah, it's certainly you can still have again the competitive nature, but it's not as big as a tennis court where you're running around everywhere. Especially with doubles, it's an enjoyable competitive thing, but you're still getting some exercise, but you're not, and that's why all ages can play it, right?
Yeah, all ages can play. Yeah, and it's so fun about it too.
Yeah, I love stories. The James McNilan story was great. When he first played, like a 75-year-old just destroyed him, and he was so
Yeah, that
devastated.
was me too.
um,
I think every single like professional pro pickleball player or even any like high level pickleball player has a story somewhat like that. I got destroyed by somebody who was definitely at least like twice my age, and then it's funny because not too long after I started, I got destroyed by somebody who was half my age, and it was 16 at the time. It was actually Alex Trong.
oh wow, okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, professional, yeah, pickleball player Alex Trong. I think she's 18, maybe 19. I don't know, but like at the time, I'm pretty sure she was like 16 or 17, and she wrecked me. And I was like, oh my gosh,
Now is
what's
that
going on?
depressing for you, Will?
No, it's not. For me, it's not. It's honestly, it's nothing new to me in sports.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up playing a lot of sports, and I'm honestly not that big of a guy. I'm about like 5'5", 5'6" on a good day. I'm like 100, anywhere from like 130 to 142 pounds, depending on like how much pizza I ate like the day before. And so in high school and whatnot, some of my friends, they just got so big, they just shot up, and in college, don't even get me around to it. Some of my friends are just absolute athletes and monsters, and there was at one point like I just couldn't keep up. There's like a physical aspect of it that I can't do, and so I stopped playing those sports and I started picking up tennis or
Yeah.
whatnot. So, but I mean, I still play them from time to time, and yeah, I used to get bodied and get smoked, and I mean, it is what it is,
Right.
something I have to deal with.
Definitely we've all been there for sure. It's great where one of the best players in the world is 16 years old in elite, right? I mean, so it's definitely doesn't matter how old you are, you could really dominate, which is also kind of cool. And also, I think pickleball does equalize men and women a lot more than any other sport. Um, you know,
Yeah,
would you agree with that?
I would say so. Yeah, I would say pickleball is one of the great, I guess, equalizing sports. Yeah, for men and women, and for I think everybody in general. I mean, not just men and women, but age and I guess physical prowess as well.
Right.
I mean, don't get me wrong, it does make a difference, but yeah, much less of a difference.
Yeah, I enjoy when like NLE play like Tyson or in the Dream Breakers for MLP. It's really cool to see that and
Hmm.
actually hanging and doing really well. So
Yeah,
were you
definitely.
always into YouTube and making content, or is pickleball your inspiration to kind of get started?
Nah, I was kind of, well, let's see. I started making content way before, like back in like 2014, 2013. It kind of just fell into my lap a little bit. Like my buddy Joseph Lay, he hit me out of the blue. Well, maybe not out of the blue, but he asked me, he's like, "Hey man, uh, I need some help making some YouTube videos, some videos." And he wanted to make some martial arts videos.
Oh,
Like we grew up together, we watched Jackie Chan, Jet
yeah.
Li, and I'll come back to the story real quick, but my buddy Joseph Lay is an action designer, like a stunt action
Wow.
designer and like a director in Hollywood now. He actually helped do the action for Shang-Chi for Disney,
Yeah.
the Marvel movie, and then Everything Everywhere All at Once. So before that, he was a graphic designer, but he wanted to get into film, and he asked me to help him with some Jackie Chan type style videos. And I was like, Joseph, like, I don't know martial arts. Like, what do you want from me? Right? And he actually used to practice kung fu. But he's like, no, man, I don't need anybody who knows martial arts. I need somebody who knows how to dance. And that's how I know Joseph because we used to b-boy, we used to break dance together, we used to go to compete and
Oh,
stuff like
cool.
that. So yeah, I'll send you some of those clips
Yeah.
later and you can watch them if
Yeah.
you want. Still some of my favorite videos to this day. But yeah, he asked me, and when I saw the final product, I was hooked. I was like, oh my gosh, that's me. That it looks so crazy. Like I'm out here. This is what I see in the movies, and that's how I kind of get got into content creation. He has a channel called Team Red Pro, and some of my videos are still up there. And that kind of, hanging around him, whatnot, I learned the skills to make videos and do content. And somewhere between then, I've always thought about making a channel for myself. I just didn't know what it was until pickleball came around,
Right.
you
Just seemed
know?
like a natural progression right into it.
Yeah, because at the time I was also thinking of doing stuff for tennis. I was like, oh yeah, let's make something of, a sport or a subject that I really like, right?
Yeah.
But I just never got around to doing it for tennis. And then pickleball came around, and then yeah, I made a few videos. And honestly, I didn't even think I would like make videos. Like, I actually didn't even want a channel. What kind of started it was I made a video on the chainsaw
Oh,
serve
right.
because I learned how to do it. And a bunch of people were asking me, it's like, yo, how do you do this? How do you combat it? Yada yada. And I was sick and tired of just explaining it to them and showing them. So I just made a video. Yeah.
And all is history. Um,
Yeah. No, it's
so as
right.
far as your gameplay, how often are you playing? And of the times you're playing, how much is that spent drilling versus actually playing games?
Oh man, I used to play a lot. It's a lot less now because I'm trying to work on, videos
Yeah.
and, just keeping my life together essentially. But I used to play a lot, maybe like 4 or 5 times a week. Now it's probably maybe anywhere between 1 and 3, depending how much time I
Yeah.
have. It's closer to probably 1 to 2. Um, and most of the times it's all play. It was like 100% play, like almost no drilling. And I'm trying to do a little bit more drilling
Yeah.
now. I was on Jordan
Yeah.
Briones'
Yeah.
podcast, and he asked me that, and he was like, "All right, well, you want to get better, but how much are you training and drilling?" And in that spot, I'll say the same thing. It's 100% play, 0% drill, and he's like, "Okay, well, if you're definitely going to be capped out." And I said, "Okay, so I need to change that." And yeah, so right now it's still a lot of playing, maybe a little bit more drilling. It's probably like 5, 10% drilling
Well,
now.
it's
I'm
going
trying
up.
to get it up to Yeah, I'm trying to get to at least like 25, maybe 50 by end of the summer. Maybe before that. We'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see.
Yeah. My
Yeah.
buddy, he lives about 5 minutes away from me. He has his own court in his backyard. It is awesome. I was just
Mhm.
yesterday just drilling with him. I was like, hey, can I come over and drill with you? He's like, yeah, sure, come on over. I was like, ah, perfect.
That's cool. Wait, where are you based out of?
Connecticut.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So our
I
outdoor
need to
coach.
come over there.
What's up?
Yeah, Nico, where in Connecticut? Are you near, is Hartford? Hartford? That's in Connecticut,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. That's the capital. So I'm about 30 minutes from Hartford. Hartford's almost like in the middle of the state, give or take.
Okay.
So yeah, it's not a very big state. You could drive across state in about 2 hours, so it's not like a
Gotcha.
big state. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the courts are open now in our recplex, and which is pretty cool. But usually just playing indoors actually. Um, so pickleball is also a mental and strategic sport, especially as you get better, like yourself. Do you go into a game
Yeah.
with a plan, or do you adjust on the fly? Do you have like a default plan, or are you just going out there just feeling it out and adjusting?
Uh, Man, a lot of the times I'm going on the fly, feeling it out, and I'll make small adjustments here and there, but it's kind of tough. I'm a type of person who kind of I think I have natural like court awareness and good court IQ, but I think that's just all my years of playing tennis,
Yeah.
and I think my court IQ, even amongst tennis players, is better than most of them, many of them, to be quite honest. Because honestly, most people's court IQ is pretty horrendous, in my opinion. I'm the type of person who like tries to learn the fundamentals, and once I learn the fundamentals, I try to forget them so I can just play freely. You ever heard that? I think that's somewhere. Someone said it somewhere. You learn the fundamentals so you can forget them,
Yeah.
right? And that's kind of the camp that I try to fall into. But right now, at least in my game, I'm starting to reach a almost a little bit of a plateau, or at least the improvement is uh slowing down. And I think to get to the next level, I need to reevaluate and, you know, obviously work on my game, um, and learn new fundamentals, you
Yeah.
know? And so that's kind of where I'm at right now. And when it comes to just court IQ and when it comes to my skill set and increasing my consistency, those things.
Yeah. No, it's almost like you mentioned about learning fundamentals and forgetting them. It's almost like in hockey, they're not thinking about skating, right? That's probably the furthest thing from
Yeah.
their minds. They're not thinking about, okay, let me look at my feet. It's just for this part, but it's so important to the game, um, which
Yeah.
is very interesting. Um, so do you know, I mean, you're a 4 or 5, would you say? Five?
Yeah, I'm a 4.5. I mean, if you check my duper, it's like I mean, I don't know. I'm at this weird stage. I think it's safe to say I'm 5.0 now, but I'm pretty weak 5.0. I think my duper on my doubles is probably like 4.95, something like that. My singles is like 5.3 last time I checked. Um, but yeah, I would say between 4.5 and 5.0. I think I have the skills to hang with 5.0 and above. And I mean, I've drilled and I've played with some of the best
Right.
players, like
Yeah, I've seen those. Yeah.
Zane, James, So I have the skills there, but I just don't have the, you know, consistency, to keep playing at that high level, And what I'm trying to get at is like, how good are you on your worst day?
Right.
Right? On my worst day, I'm still 4.5. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? On my best day, I could be like 5.0 plus, right? And so, like, making that gap smaller so I can definitively say, even on my worst day, I'm a
Yeah.
5.0. Like, that's where I'm trying to get at, you know? And that comes with the drilling and the consistency, and that comes with, I guess, learning more deeply about the game.
So, what would separate you from like a James Ignatowicz? Like you played against them. There's not a lot different, but there is, right? So, do you recognize like that skill gap that you have to improve upon to get to his level?
To get to his level, yeah, I do. Honestly, it's it is I mean, part of it is the ball striking ability, right? And he can hit his what I'm trying to say is like his 80% when he hits a ball,
Yeah.
right? Will all going all the time is stronger or more effective than like my 100%. When I'm and this is I'm talking about, you know, speed and power and strength.
Right.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So there's a gap there. That's something that in order for me to get to, like, I'd have to go to the
Yeah.
gym. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like to work on that, right? So for me to play, because you want to play consistently, right? But when I'm playing against, let's say, a James or somebody else, like if I go 80% so I can get all my balls in or whatever, that's like easy
Yeah,
for them, you know? So I have to take more risks. So now I have to go at 100. But once you start going to 100, you know, you start missing shots, right? You start hitting those margins and you start missing them. And that's where the drilling comes in, you know, to decrease that margin,
right.
right? So that's a big thing. And honestly, like I talked about this with Chris before, but um it's the four pillars or the like the four hierarchies of pickleball, which I call, right? And that is like receiving and perceiving, right? Like seeing the ball, like perceiving. And I'll explain this in a bit. So that's the
Yeah,
first pillar, right? Or the first hierarchy. And the next thing that comes after that is positioning. And then the next thing that comes after that is your shot selection. And then the next thing comes after that is execution, right? Because you can have the best, I don't know, forehand drive in the world from the baseline or inside the court. But if you can't see the ball that's coming at you, like it has some spin on it and you can't see it, or it's coming at a speed that you can't handle, then your shot means
right,
nothing, right? You can be blind. Like you can have the best stroke in the world, but you're blind. It don't
right,
matter. You know what I mean? You're not gonna make contact with the ball. And this the next thing after that is positioning, right? And positioning and shot selection can like, you know, flip flop. But like I can have the best drive in the world, but if I'm on the left side of the court and the ball's hit to the right side of the court, I'm nowhere near there. What
right,
does it matter? Nothing, right? Now, if you're in the right position, you can see the ball. Now you have to choose the right shot, right? Like if the ball drops in the kitchen, right, and you're going there, and you're trying to do a drive, like with all your might,
right.
like nah, it's not happening, right? Now, if all those three other things are met, now you have to be able to execute the shot at, you know, with some consistency at a high level. Like, you know, you can have that best shot in the world, but if you only do it one times out of 10, like what use? Like, you know, what good is it? Right? So if you look at the pros, right, they are so incredibly good at seeing and receiving the ball.
Yeah,
Like people don't do that. This is just hand-eye coordination, right? If you can work on that, like you're gonna be miles ahead of everybody else, right? The next hierarchy is positioning, and that's footwork. That is, you know, the micro adjustments, like, you know, so you don't get chicken wing and stuff like that. So now in my game, I'm focusing less on the like execution of shots. I can execute, you know, some good shots. Shot selection is also honestly a big thing in pickleball. Like I could probably do better with that, but if you really want to improve your game where that's going to give you the most return, work on your vision, seeing, receiving, and work on your court positioning, and that and then combining all those things is what's going to help you get to the next level. So if you look at the pros, like they're so good at seeing, receiving, they're so good at positioning, you know, they always choose like the right shots and then they can execute it at a high level, you know. So there's always aspects of that that I try and
yeah.
see.
It's going back to the hockey analogy, right? It's the skating, like they just do it instinctually. But you're right, and that was
Hmm.
great advice for the people watching. So thank you for that. I know I'm going to
Yeah.
replay this and really hone in on that stuff myself. Um, So as far as going back to the mental game, how do you keep yourself from getting down on yourself? You're playing bad, right? How are you getting back to your equilibrium where you're at that calm state where you're right in the zone where you're playing better? What's that process you go through if you are feeling down about yourself in a game? How do you quickly turn that around?
Honestly, it's tough. It kind of depends on the environment that I'm in. Like if I'm really competing at a tournament, then it might be different from if I'm playing a highly competitive rec game. For the most part, I try to have fun, at least in rec games or whatnot. And when I'm having fun, I'm playing loose. I play good, right? And then, you know, into it's almost like phases. Like I've played enough sports that I know myself, and if I'm feeling down on myself, the first thing that I try and do is to like calm everything, be silent, you know, and focus on what matters, right? And getting the ball in, right? And to build momentum. I'm always trying to build momentum and get it to critical mass where I can like play freely and get in the zone. And so the first part of that is like quieting myself, trying to play focused, not making mistakes, right? And then what usually helps me is if my partner is able to capitalize on my steadiness and if they can like, you know, hit some winners, hit some stuff or set me up for something, you know, to get myself pumped up, And then once I get pumped up, I go on a streak, and then I can start playing freely and I start doing some really, I don't know, interesting or fancy things, and then that gets me stoked. And then I try to keep the ball rolling, and that's kind of how I try and handle it, but it's hard, and getting to that level or keeping that level is very difficult. I played against a lot of the pros, and I'll get points in game. I mean, not even games. I almost beat Zane one time we played, but I'll get points and stuff on him. But keeping it and staying at that high level is very hard, and that is one of the biggest differences between amateurs and the pros. They can just sustain high levels of play for much
Like
longer.
consistency,
You know,
right?
yeah, it's consistency. And that goes back to the drilling. Which I don't do.
Yeah, I was playing in a late night session last night actually, and I noticed that my play deteriorates if I'm not trusting my partner. I feel like I have to do more, and then I'm going to the
Hmm.
100%, like you're saying before, when I don't have
Yeah.
to win these games. And I'm like,
Hmm.
why are we getting destroyed? I know my another partner just destroyed them. So I feel like for me, is that the same for you? Do you have to trust your partner so you can play better?
Yeah, you have to trust your partner, and also, I mean, finding the right partner too. I mean, that goes with trust, but there are partners that that you can kind of manage their momentum and their mind state, and they have to know how to manage yours too and how you operate, right? If I'm playing in a match and I hit something, there's a bad call, and I know it's a bad call too, but I'm feeling good. I don't even bother arguing because it destroys my
Right,
momentum. It's 1 point, unless it's game match
right.
or something. But sometimes, my partner will try to argue and stuff. I'm like, no, man, you're killing my momentum. You don't understand where I'm at. I'm almost there. We're on the upswing. Let's just leave it and let's
Yeah.
go. I don't care, you know? And that's kind of how I like to operate. But sometimes, some people don't understand that. I don't get that. Um, and it just ruins my momentum, and then I have to start all over,
Yeah.
and it's
And it's
tough.
tough to start all over mid
Yeah.
game when you only have 11 points, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you need that momentum now. I can't start over. Don't break, don't kill my vibe
Yeah.
right now. Let's just go. But sometimes you got to fight because sometimes, people have some really bad line calls,
Are
but
you
it is what
are
it
you
is.
generally playing with the same partners, or are you switch? No.
I'm fishing around. I don't have anything steady, and it's probably part of the reason why I haven't done very well in doubles. I think the last thing I podium in doubles back in 2021, and this was when I was still playing 4-0. I got silver. It came all the way through the back
Wow.
draw. Played against young young phenom Sammy Lee from
Nice.
Minnesota. He's the one who handed me my first championship loss. I think Sammy's playing some pro now, and he's definitely 5-0 plus, and he was just super steady. So shout outs to Sammy Lee out there. And then the rest of it, it's just bad luck. I think my first time playing 5-0 doubles in Atlanta, I had a partner who I played really good with, but he got into a pretty bad car
Oh,
accident the week before. He's
yeah.
fine, but he couldn't make it. I got random partners. And then let's see, this recent well, I went to the PPA in Arizona and I played with my buddy Dong. He's actually in, that's why I asked you. I think he's in
Oh, okay.
Connecticut. Was he in Massachusetts? Yeah, he used to live in Tulsa, but he's a
Yeah.
strong player as well. Um, and we haven't played together in a tournament setting, and that was a little tough, and I don't get to really practice with him. And then this one, the U.S. Open
Yeah.
recently, played with my buddy Nahum. We used to play tennis together, but I've never played pickleball with him, and we went to go play 4-5, and there was highs, but there's also some lows. I think he needs to work on a few things and getting his consistency up, but had a heartbreaking second round match against the second seed. We lost 11-9, 9-11, 13-11.
Yeah. I did
So
catch. I did
go ahead.
catch your when you were talking about Chris Olsen about that on your podcast, the latest podcast you just had.
Yeah.
So, if you haven't seen that one, you can hear the adventures of Chris and Will at the U.S.
Yeah.
Open, which is a very entertaining episode. So I hope you do tune in, and we'll put a link in the description. Um, so
Yeah.
what keeps you? I mean, you've been playing for a while now, right? So what keeps you kind of
Yeah.
passionate and driven about the game?
Uh, I mean, just being able to improve,
Yeah.
right? See improvement. But I think it's just all aspects of pickleball. If I'm not having a good time playing, right? Like I'll make content,
Right.
or I'll talk about battles or whatnot, or if I don't have a good time playing rec, I'm like, oh, I want something more. Like I'll try to go to a tournament or something, get the competition
Yeah.
like itch out of me. And if that's, not there, then like I said, I'll make content. Even making content for myself is a bit much sometimes. I kind of don't like working by myself.
Yeah.
So that's why obviously I do a lot of work with Chris. So I really have a good time when I'm out at an event and I get to help out with videos for Shea Underwood,
Oh,
and Kyle Kazuda, that pickleball
yeah.
guy. So I love collaborating with those guys. Here and there, you might see me in their
Right.
videos, doing stuff with them. And that's when like I really like kind of break out of my shell. I really enjoy doing that.
Yeah, the collaboration is really fun, especially with like-minded people who can speak your language as far as the pickleball language is concerned, and that's super cool.
Yeah.
Now, how often are you playing like a small local tournament as opposed to traveling for major events now?
Oh man, I haven't played too many small events or local events. I'm trying to do more. It's funny enough because this year I told myself that I would stop traveling so much and like go to like the ones I really want to go to make sure like, Chris or Kyle and Shay are there, and then try to play more local stuff because traveling is just takes so
It
much
does.
out of you. But I think this year I have more stuff booked to like go out of town than the previous years. But I do want to do more local stuff, but it's just the way the industry is moving forward and what YouTube and the content creation has brought me. It's just pulling me to go to some of these events and whatnot. And I don't know, once I get my life together, like I'll be able to better schedule these events like better.
Yeah, it's good to have that name recognition where you can be meeting these pros, playing with them, because it adds additional content, right? And so it's kind of a win-win for you. Um, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And I mean, dude, I had to like last year I sacrificed a lot just to like get to where I am. And it's funny because I'm not honestly where maybe I should be, people think, because obviously, you look at Kyle,
Yeah.
Shay, Chris, and their subs and their view counts and their views and all the best for them.
Yeah.
They deserve all the success that they've gotten. Those guys work so hard. But for me, like I didn't do certain things and like, maxing out credit cards and stuff like just so I can go travel. So because I was like, there's a small window right now where I can meet these pros and play with them and create content. And I was like, I might not get this opportunity ever again. So, I started myself like
Right.
financially so I could do some of these things to build that relationship with them. And now like, I'm trying to figure it out as I go,
Yeah, it's not a bad way to do it though. Kind of plant a bunch of seeds everywhere. When you settle down more, you have those
Yeah.
relationship built. You can get them on your show, and so well, we talked about the U.S. Open, and again, I won't make you relive that because you just talked about it in your own podcast. So I will again spin a link for people to go to that
Yeah.
podcast and check it out. So I do want to talk about Chris Olsen a little bit because you guys had such a
Yeah.
good relationship. Great on camera
Yep.
chemistry as well. So
Yeah.
when did you meet Chris Olsen? Was that relationship building a smooth process?
It was fairly smooth, I would say. It's so funny because I feel like I've known him forever now, but uh, it hasn't even been a year.
Really?
Like, I met him, yeah, I met him May of
I think
last year, and it was on a whim.
I would have thought you guys were like high school friends or something. Wow. How do you like that?
Oh, no, we're not high school friends or anything. In fact,
Huh.
shoot, if we met in high school or maybe later, if you asked me like 10 years ago when I met Chris, he probably would have been like a friend of me, a rival, like, potentially an enemy. Um, so I met Chris May of last year. was doing content and stuff, obviously. And at the time, around this time last year, maybe a little bit before, like, maybe 14 months ago, I felt like content in the pickleball world was honestly, it was pretty
Right.
trash. It's pretty
Right.
garbage. Like a lot of it is still trash and garbage now, in my opinion. And I was like, I want to see better stuff because I love this game. I love this sport. And Chris had by far some of the best content, like in terms of
Right.
quality and information um, out there. And I was just getting back into video and I saw his videos. We made a video that came out around the same time on the chainsaw serve. And I was like, oh wow, this guy's really good. And I really reached out to him because it was more for professional development because I was getting back into video and I wanted to learn like new techniques in video and editing and the new technology, new cameras and stuff were coming out that I didn't know about. So I just reached out to him on Instagram. And I was like, hey man, really love your stuff. We started talking. I was like, I would love to like come up there and do kind of like, a pros versus Joes. It would have been more like a Joes versus
Right.
Schmoes type of video with him. And he could teach me some stuff. And I try to make it as easy as possible for him so he wouldn't say
Right.
no. I was like, I'll come up there. Just tell me like a week or a time that you're not going anywhere. I'll fly up there. I'll get my own Airbnb. He really didn't have to do much. And he agreed to it. And I went up there. We started making some stuff. And we just found out that we really vibed. And we got along really good. And we talked about pickleball like so much. I was like, dude, we have all this camera gear and this equipment.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't even want to do the podcast. Like, let's just record it and put it out there, see what happens. He didn't want to do it. He's like, there's so much on his plate. And yeah, I convinced him to do it. If you watch is in my channel, like the pilot episode is on my channel first. And I was like, hey, put this, I don't care, just put
Yeah.
it on your channel. Because at the time, I think he had like 4,000 subs. I had like
Right.
300,
Right. Right.
right? And one thing led to another, and we kept on doing it. And then he's like, hey, dude, Will, this is your idea. Should we put this on your channel? And I was like, nah, I want this to hit as many people
Yeah.
as possible. And I told him to put it on his channel, and he was doing the editing and stuff for it anyways. And he really took the podcast and he really like elevated it and took it to the next level. So,
Yeah.
you know, shout outs, shout outs to him.
Yeah. No, he seems like a good guy and down to earth, doesn't take things too seriously. And, it's same as you. He's just like a cool guy. There's nothing that's going to rile him up. And really, I
Yeah.
think what he did well, at least what I use him for, if you will, is
Yeah.
using his knowledge and videos about the paddles and making my decision. So if you become an expert in the field of anything, especially in a sport you love, and you trust him, he does honest
Yeah.
assessments. He's not going to sugarcoat it. I love he just
Yeah.
he just bashed Zane's paddle, which is funny to me.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But he's just real, and I think you
Mhm.
guys vibe well.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. No, definitely. So yeah, Chris now is like he's probably one of my best friends. I probably talk to him every
Oh, that's
day.
awesome.
And the cool thing, yeah, the cool thing about Chris is that I think even if it wasn't for pickleball, I'm pretty sure like him and I would still be
Yeah.
friends. Like, I think that's the thing. Like we still get along. We have other interests that, overlap, when it comes to stuff like gaming, photography, videography. But it just so happens that we both freaking love pickleball. And also just so happens that I'm also a gear nerd, like a gearhead and like a paddle nerd, probably just as much as him. Maybe not as
Right.
much, but I don't know, like I'd say he's the biggest like paddle nerd, paddle geek out there for, obviously. I don't know if anybody else is as close to him who's not essentially like a
Right.
manufacturer or an
Right.
engineer. Like I'm probably right under him, I would say. Yeah, so we talk gear and stuff all the time. He's the one who pushed me to do paddle reviews.
Oh,
I've always wanted to do it, but he really like pushed me to do paddle reviews because he's like, oh, I think you have an interesting take on the paddle stuff, and I try to make mine a little bit different, like, a little bit more funny and engaging, but still like, giving the information. But yeah, no, he's built such a great niche and brand like around what he does, and that's what's happening with content creators and pickleball. People are like starting to niche
yeah.
down, you know, and I'm still trying to figure out like what I kind of want to do when it comes to content as well, like in the space. So it's kind of hard because I'm kind of like a mix between like Chris, Shay,
Right.
Kyle, which is also the reason why I love working with them because each thing I do with them kind of scratches that
Yeah.
itch, for variety.
I'm sure it kind
Yeah.
of sparks ideas as well for you coming out of speaking to one of those guys or being involved with their show and generate some new self.
Yeah.
What
Yeah, all the time. I got so many ideas. Just a little time to
so
execute.
what is your formula? You mentioned that there's good pickleball content and there's trash. Um, Hopefully,
Yes.
I'm not on the trash side. But if I'm a trash guy, let's say I'm a trash pickleball guy, how can I? What's the formula for creating a good video in your mind?
Okay, yeah. So I mean, honestly, the first thing you should do, I mean, obviously you want the content to, be good, right? So the content falls
Yep.
on a spectrum of educational and entertainment, right? You can swing either way. If you can do both, that like, you're
Yeah.
golden, right? And I think the one person who's doing that really well right now is
Yeah.
Kyle Kazuda, that
Right.
pickleball guy. If you watch some of his latest like YouTube videos, of educational for like beginner players, it is entertaining and it is educational and
Hmm.
informative, right? So that's like number one. Like you can either swing either way. So that's like number one. Like figuring out what you want to do, and I would say if you're not good or you're not sure, lean towards one or
Right.
the other. And right now, education is the easiest thing to do and do well because there's not enough
Huh.
of it out there. I mean, look at Primetime Pickleball, Jordan
Yeah.
Briones, look at Kyle, Sincola, Zane. They're doing a
Yeah.
lot of educational videos, Simone,
Yeah.
right? Um, and then but trying to be entertaining, like
Yeah.
that is the thing that is hard. I think Shay is trying to figure it out. He's getting there, like with the
Right.
trick shots and stuff
Right.
like that. But that part is hard. And then once you can figure out how to do both, then you can kind of combine them together. So that's like number one, figuring that out and understanding where in the spectrum you fall. Next thing after that is honestly just getting good quality. Like it's the audio. Most people's audio
Right.
is bad, right? So I'm glad you chose Riverside right here. I don't know how. I mean, some of the Zoom calls and stuff is fine, but audio is so bad in a lot of videos, I would say for the most part. And then the next thing up is like, the video, right? I mean, I'll watch something and I'll give it a pass if it's like okay video quality or even subpar. But if the audio's
Yeah.
not good, like I'm I'm not watching that. Like
That's
there's
what I heard too.
there's no one.
Audio is king. I mean, if you have the best video in the world, but the audio is terrible, it's not good. So I do
Yeah.
have you can't
Yes.
see it, but I have studio lights and Rode mics in here. But I tell you, with the
Yeah.
advent of
Oh,
like
the
the cell
backdrop.
phones and all this stuff, or I mean, it's like it's pretty good. It's not horrible. Um,
Yeah. No, 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 no. Like, I mean, honestly, even with the phones now, right? I think because most people do Zoom calls and stuff through a
right?
laptop or whatnot, and even through like the phone. I don't know, maybe they have better internet quality. I don't know if it's the app or it's through Zoom, but even like the microphones on the iPhone and stuff are pretty good. And so when I see or when I hear bad audio, I'm like, no, like you don't get a pass. Like there should be no reason, like in this day and age where you have bad audio, like you can buy like, I don't know, a 20 to like, I don't know, $100 mic on Amazon or something that connects straight to
Yeah.
your phone and you should have good audio. Even like stuff through like your AirPods or something, it's
Oh,
like
right.
pretty decent, you know? But
I see a lot of people
yeah,
with content creators pickleball wearing this like this Rode lapel. It's like a square
the Rode,
thing.
yeah, the Rode
Yeah.
mic, the Square or the
Yeah.
DJI. Yeah, I have one too. It's somewhere. It is the best thing. It is. Let me see. Where do I have it? Oh, it's right here. Here you go. See this?
Yes.
It's like a little AirPods type case thing. It's kind of pricey. It's like
Yeah.
$300, but it might even be 350. But this is like one of the best like on the go mics you can get. It can plug straight into your phone. You can plug it straight into your laptop as well. It can record externally. This is a charging case. It's super portable,
Hey, what's
reliable.
that called,
Like
Bill?
this is one of the things. This is just if you look up this DJI
Okay.
microphone or wireless mic, like this will come up. And yeah, it's one of the best. Rode has one too called the Rode Wireless Go 2. It just doesn't have this like
Right.
nifty case like with the charging or whatever. You can buy that separately, but the Rode Wireless Go 2 is a little bit um
Yeah.
cheaper and there's some features in there that this one doesn't have, but I would say like probably 8 times, 9 times out of 10, like this is just a little bit better in terms of just like usage. But the Rode Wireless Go 2 is also really good. I actually have that as
Yeah,
well.
the wireless is really critical, especially if you're playing and doing a tutorial. I so DJI, I have a
Yeah,
DJI
for sure.
drone. Same company. I'm assuming DJI. Yeah,
Same
yeah.
company.
Figure so.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, let's see. Oh, okay. This is kind of more of a fun thing about Chris. So,
Yes.
as you get to know someone and you build a relationship up, it's not all great. What are the pet peeves you think you have of each other?
Oh, let's see. Things that I have with Chris. I mean, I'm just annoyed sometimes because he's so freaking good at what he does. Like, I'm like, man, like,
Just
stop
mess up
working
one
so
time.
hard. Yeah, but no, like, honestly, there's not. I really can't think of too many pet peeves
Yeah.
that I have with Chris. I think maybe when I go visit him sometimes, and I go to his office, and the paddles are just everywhere. Like, just where I can't like walk anywhere. Like that's somewhat annoying. And I wouldn't say he's necessarily an unclean guy, but just like sometimes the clutter builds up, and it's like near impossible to like walk into his apartment
If I see
sometimes. I don't know
Chris
how his
on
wife deals with
Hoarders and it's Hoarders Pickleball Paddle Edition, we know we have a little intervention
it. Yeah,
with your
he's
friend
there.
there.
He's there. Yeah. So that's one thing. I think maybe the one thing that he has with me is like I don't know, sometimes I wonder if he gets annoyed with me joking on him
Three
sometimes because
point
I do that a
five, yeah,
lot, you know. Even why I mean like I try to do it less now because like I don't want it I think there will be a time when that joke is not funny anymore, but it's part of him now. And so I try to use it sparingly now,
yeah.
you know,
Well,
for the most
when I
part.
think of you guys, I think of Chris being a 3.5. Like that's the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah. I know, and it's worked out. It's all according to
Yeah,
my master
it has
plan.
worked
Like,
definitely. Um,
yeah. When I started proliferating that joke, when I started telling that joke more, I was like, oh man, this is gonna be so funny because I know this is gonna stick. He's gonna eventually make
yeah,
merch, and he did. And I said, people are gonna see him like at tournament stuff. He's not gonna know them, and they're gonna call him 35 or they're gonna chant
yeah.
his name or whatnot. And it works. Even Zane and James like say that to him now, and it's just so funny to me that this is how it happened. And like I feel good about it. Like that I
You should
made it
feel proud about
happen,
yourself, that for
honestly.
sure.
Yeah.
So outside of pickleball, yeah, get rid of that. Well, what do you like to do when you're
Yeah.
not playing pickleball?
Let's see. If I'm not playing pickleball, I like to play video games from time to time. Like, I'll probably play a lot of Super Smash
Nice,
Bros. That Hearthstone. Those are probably the only two games that I play right now. I used to play more, but it's just hard. I can't keep up with these kids who are cracked
right?
out on the sticks on the keyboard. I watch a lot of like shows. A lot of it is like animated. I love like, still love like cartoon animated shows like
Yeah,
anime. Um, yeah, those are things that I like to do. I'll do a lot of like I'll do some reading. I've been trying to do a little bit more reading, at least a little bit more reading for fictional
yeah,
stuff. Like I used to read just like nonfiction, but now I'm starting to read fiction a bit again. A lot of it has been the Avatar: Last Airbender
nice.
novels, like Shadow of Kyoshi, Rise of Kyoshi. So I'm a big Avatar: Last Airbender fan. I used to do a lot of like photography,
Mm,
just going out, street photography, doing a lot of portraits. If you go to Instagram, there's another like Instagram that I have account called Chain, like a
yeah,
chain you wear on your neck underscore visuals. And that used to have some of my
oh,
studio
cool.
photography in there, but I haven't done that in a while. But I think if I wasn't doing pickleball, I'd probably start picking up
Hmm.
photography a bit more again. And yeah, that's kind of like what
Yeah,
I like to
well,
do.
that's cool. It's good to have
Yeah.
hobbies to get. I mean, pickleball is great, but sometimes you have to, do other things to make your life more a little
Yeah.
well-rounded. Um,
Yeah.
so before we get into some of those issues, I want to get to more controversial in the pickleball community.
Yeah.
Um, let's say that a 3.5 comes to you and says, "Hey, I'm trying to get better." What would you say to him
Yeah.
or her?
the first thing I say to them, I mean, if they are truly a 3-5, usually I've played with them or whatnot. But yeah, the first thing I tell them to play better is like I kind of explained to them like those
Yeah,
pillars, the
yeah,
four hierarchies
right,
of pickleball, and I was like, yeah, work on seeing, work on your positioning, and then if you are going to work on your shots, the first thing you should work on, honestly, is your drives. Honestly, your drives and
yeah,
your volleys, because at 3-5 to 4-0, you you honestly don't really need to have that great of a
right,
drop. Like you really don't. You need to learn how to volley, you need to learn how to counter because like most people you're playing at that level don't have great
right.
drops either, right? They're hitting it kind of high, and just fall into a place where you can attack it. You just need to learn how to volley and counter or attack it back.
Mhm.
And then once you can do that, right? And those drives and stuff don't work anymore because you're just getting
Yeah,
countered and people are volleying it back at you and you're losing. That's when you should start implementing and learning the drop more. So, you know, first it's like coordination, see how good your
yeah,
hand-eye coordination is. That you can practice at home. Tossing
right.
a ball up against a wall, you can like just toss the paddle up and down like this and just, get those racket skills up. After that, it's positioning. Learn where to be on the court because I mean, it doesn't matter if you know what to do or you can't execute the shot if you're not in the right place or you're out of position, you're gonna get burned. Uh, you
Have
know?
you
And then if you are gonna execute like execution of shots, yeah, it's
have
volleys
you
and
considered
counters.
coaching at all, or do you do it informally?
I kind of do it informally. I used to
Oh,
be a tennis
okay.
coach, so I think I'm a pretty good coach. I think I see the game
Mhm.
different from a lot of people. And I've also played table tennis growing up. I played tennis at a fairly, I would say, high rec
Mhm.
level. I got to like 4 or 5 playing tennis. I was, USTA, made his
Wow.
sectionals a few times, which is like the
Yeah.
region like in the mid-Atlantic to the finals. So I lost in the finals and I did make the nationals, but I'm pretty, I have pretty good court sense IQ. But yeah, I've thought about it, but honestly, it's not something I want to do because I mean, I used to teach tennis and I
Oh,
got burned out and stopped playing tennis for a while. And I was like, I don't want that to happen with pickleball. But I think in the future for me, I do plan on doing a little bit more educational content, but with my flair and with my concepts. But I also want to do it a little bit differently from other instructors
yeah.
out there. I want to teach more concepts. Like, so it doesn't matter what technique or the, thing that you
Right.
like to do or your habits that you have. If you follow certain concepts and understand certain concepts, you can find success. You know, like a common thing that I tell a lot of like 4-0 players that are looking to improve their drops and like 4-5s, like, they're aiming for a spot in the kitchen,
Right.
right? But you shouldn't do that. What you need to understand is that the ball falls in an arc, right? There's two vectors. There's a forward vector and
Yeah.
a height vector, right? Up and down vector, right? So your stroke, like it needs to compensate for both of those vectors, right? So if you're getting too much height on the ball, that means you're swinging the ball
Mm.
up too early, or too hard. You need to like push it more, right? So if you understand lifting and pushing, you can then after you make a shot, you can make those adjustments, accordingly, right? And so when you're doing drops, I tell people that you should aim for the arc, the height, the peak of the arc to be somewhere over the kitchen so that it always
Right.
lands, right? And that's a concept you can take anywhere. If you understand the arc of a ball, you're not aiming for a spot. It doesn't matter what technique you use to hit your drop. You can do a slice or you can do a lift or a top spin. But if you understand that the height, the peak of the arc should be hovering somewhere around the kitchen
Right.
line, like on your side, right? Or a little bit further back, like the ball will fall inside of their no volley zone,
Right.
right? And so those are the things that I try and teach because that's a concept you can take anywhere and teach
Yeah.
anybody,
It's
you
informative.
know, and there's other common threads and
Yeah. Instead
concepts.
of like, okay, hold your paddle here, go here. you know.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That stuff's not like, I mean, that's really not helping anybody, and you won't remember those when you're next time on the court. Like that's why people like spend this money on these lessons and stuff, and they don't get better, is because sometimes those coaches don't teach the underlying concepts of why these little micro adjustments in the way you hold your paddle or the
Yeah.
execution works is because they don't understand the concept. But if you understand the concept, even if the coach is not there, you
Mm.
remember the concept, if you're a good player, right, or even a decent player, you'll be able to take that and kind of, make it your own and improve that way. And that's the
Yeah.
fun thing about pickleball is like you can see the improvement. Like, you can level up and you can see
Yeah,
it.
I love the game because I love the improvements and how you can challenge yourself and move up the ranks. That's one of the fun things about it.
Yeah.
So I do want to talk to you about some controversial issues. Couple of these are kind of old, but I want to get your take on it.
Yeah.
The first one is the DJ Young paddle toss. And if people don't know, a few tournaments
Yeah.
ago, DJ Young threw a paddle down in after they lost the match, threw it down. It ricocheted off the ground to the crowd. Just for clarity purposes, DJ was not throw it in the crowd, did not intentionally try to throw it in the crowd, but it ricocheted into the crowd. And then we saw maybe a month or so, a couple months ago, where Zane he tried to hit a ball. It was kind of a meme. We made ESPN's like not top 10, donked off his head,
Not
and then he
yeah.
throws his
Yeah.
paddle up. Doesn't get fined, but DJ Young does.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to progress the conversation past the actual incident because I think that's been played out. But do you think that
Mm-hmm.
the intent, Zane doesn't get? I'm just giving examples. Other people have been throwing paddles, but Zane doesn't get fined. DJ Young does because his goes in the paddle. Should it be fined on the outcome of the action or the action itself?
That's tough to say. Well, I mean, if you want to be safe, like it should just be
Right.
the action itself, because then this just makes things easy, right? Because then the outcome, like things can be kind of iffy, right? Depending on what happens, right? So if you want to be fair, it should just be the action. But also, I don't know, it's like it was kind of funny to see Zayn kind of toss it
It
in there
was
after
fun,
what happened, right? And I think that's the situation.
and
Yeah,
he
I
wasn't
think that's the
angry.
situation, right? Because it was funny. Right, exactly. But I don't know, he could have easily, missed that tomahawk or that overhead and it bonked him in the head. He could have easily just been his man and just,
Yeah,
tossed his pad into the ground and the same outcome could have happened, right? So, I mean, tough to say like which one is better to keep things not as
right.
serious, because I think that's why we like pickleball because it's kind of funny, right? Because like I don't know, I think the paddle toss after when Zayn
Yeah,
missed it was funny. Like, it was a moment in pickleball and I think we all enjoyed it. And to take away those moments from us
yeah,
would kind of suck, to have everybody kind of boring on the court. But, for the safety of people and whatnot, like, yeah, everybody should be fined for
right.
the action, right?
Yeah,
And yeah, who knows? And it was a little bit different because Zayn tossed it in the air and whereas DJ like slammed it into the ground, right? So those actions are different. I mean, the rules just need to be set somewhere. I don't know. That's how I feel about it. Just the rules just need to
yeah,
be consistent and set. Everybody needs to know what
yeah.
it
It's
is.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's an evolving game, especially with the lamination and the challenging. We'll get into some of that in a moment, but you have to
Yeah.
define what is the bad behavior or the action for which will be penalized and hold people accountable for it. If you don't have a rule in place, it's tough to hold people accountable because they don't know what is or what is not correct. So,
Right.
well, I appreciate that. So the next one is this just happened. Pablo Tellez got into it with supposedly Tyson McGuffin fans. Throughout the match, he was getting kind of harassed by the fans, and I have my opinion on it getting to that point, and the refs did not get involved with it to
Hmm.
stop that from happening. But Pablo,
Yeah.
he made a gesture, he middle finger to the crowd. Then he actually was walking off. He kind of
Yeah.
got in a verbal altercation. What is your take on that? He actually got fined for that. We have not been. I don't think any of those fines have been disclosed at all. But what is your take on that
Hmm.
situation?
I mean, yeah, there's a bunch of parties there that, are
Yeah,
kind of at fault, right? Like you said, the refs could have probably done more, right? And I don't know, that's a bit hard to put it on the refs because they're already doing like, they're already trying to figure out
right.
the score and like keep track of shortfalls and stuff. So adding something else to their plate might be a bit much, for them. Obviously the fans too heckling them. Like, I mean, I'm fine with the fans heckling you. Like, I
Yeah.
think that should be part of the sport, but I don't. Obviously, I wasn't there, so I don't have a true account of exactly what they said. But I heard it was some racial
Wow.
slurs or
Yeah.
whatnot, and I think that probably is not good. That probably needs to stop a bit. Like, you can heckle them. Like, go ahead and
Right.
heckle them, but I think there is a fine line that you probably shouldn't cross, you know? So I don't know, to those fans who did that, I don't know. Not a good look. If it
Right.
is true,
Sure.
obviously I wasn't there. You know what I'm saying? And Pablo too, I mean, yeah, he could have probably have taken it better, right? But also at the same time, like, I also don't like I don't feel any negativity towards Bob for what he did. You know what I'm saying? If somebody's heckling me, and saying some racial shit to me, like, yeah, at
Yeah.
that. They're getting the finger, they're getting it back. They're getting clapped back, you know? That's how I feel about it. And yeah, you got fined, but as long as you know what the fines are
Right.
and you're willing to take those consequences or those repercussions, like, sure, by all means, do what you got to do. But also, I don't know. There's a part of me too that doesn't condone it because obviously I don't want anything in pickleball to potentially move to anything that involves
Right.
violence. But this is like a slippery slope that could easily lead to that, right? And that's the last thing I want for the sport. So I think personally, like, I don't know. I'm fine with Pablo giving him the finger back. Like, he probably should just left and not said anything
Right.
to them after, right? But like the good in me, the person who loves the sport, wants the sport to grow, like looking at it from afar is like, okay, yeah, that something needs to be done here, right? There needs to be something in place, whether it's the ref enforcing, um, you know, the heckling, the level of heckling, right? Or fines that are clearly defined for the players, you know? So there's a happy
Yeah.
medium somewhere, and I do not envy the person whose job it is to figure that
Yeah,
all
I
out.
would have liked to see. People don't. You got to remember that these athletes are people. We have emotion. Everything's the
Yeah.
same. I was just concerned, to be honest with you, that these crowds are right with the players. The players are almost like sitting in the crowd, almost, and you don't know
Yep.
if Pablo, if this guy's a psycho. Pablo walks up, gets in his face, he punches
Yeah.
him. Right? He breaks his nose,
Hmm.
and now Pablo is out. You just don't
Yep.
know these things. So personally, I think the game is evolving.
Yeah.
I mean, from the eliminations to this, I think that some of the stuff is trial and error, and you kind of have to try to be as proactive as you can. But some situations, maybe you can't. But it's an interesting situation. I just
Yeah.
think that I just wish that Pablo didn't have to experience it to begin with, and that maybe the ref doesn't like
Yeah.
handle the crowd, but stops and gets someone to handle the crowd. You know, and have them removed
True.
maybe.
Yeah. That could be a solution.
But more.
Yep.
Yeah.
Could be a
So,
solution.
Leah Jansen, I know you guys had her on. I know you guys played her.
Yeah.
um, so,
Yep. Yeah.
unfortunately, she's a very boisterous individual. I actually respect her, and I made another post about her coming out and being so boisterous about the situation of delimited paddles and not tiptoeing around it.
Hmm.
However, having said that,
Yeah.
she falsely accused Salome
Hmm.
very publicly, even on Zane's podcast, of cheating. It
Yes.
turned out Salome's paddle was legal, even though it was at the borderline. Um, and then she issues an apology, which does not apologize to Salome. What is your take on that
Yeah.
situation?
Oh man, there's a lot to unpack there because I'm also
Yeah,
a fan of Leia, and obviously,
yeah,
I'm friends with Leia, and I personally love the fact that she's boisterous, and I think her personality is like good for the sport of pickleball. Um, there's a part of me that I kind of wish like she just kind of like stuck to her guns a
yeah,
little bit. I mean, I know she came out with the apology, and I was like, if you're gonna apologize, like, yes, I think you should have personally kind of
yeah,
addressed Salome, right? And so I can see it from Leia's point of view too, because there is like you're upset, like you can be upset personally because
Right.
maybe you lost. You could be upset at Salome
Yeah.
because obviously
Right.
they have this relationship, this rivalry, but also Leia is probably also upset with um the institution that is
Yep.
pickleball that is supposed to test these paddles or whatnot, or the PPA or USAPA or whoever, right? So I have a tough time trying to figure out, okay, is she mad at Salome? Is she mad at PPA, the
Yeah.
situation? Like, you know what I'm saying? It's tough, you know? And at the point in time when she's competing, like I I don't know. Like, there's it's probably a combination
Yeah.
of all of those things, right? But yeah, if you were going to apologize, I think she should have at least apologized to Salome. Like that's my take on it. But I still think that it is well within Leia's right to be have been upset kind of at the situation because even though that situation, like Salome's paddle was not delaminated, like I'm kind of glad that Leia brought like it's because of Leia that she brought it into this light that we're having open discussions about it and that change is going to happen.
Oh,
You know what I
absolutely.
mean? Like without Leia like going off about it and bring all this attention to it, right? We may not have seen a fix or the fix may not have come as quickly as it is or people working on it. So like to that you kind of have to give Leia props, for that. Could the apology have been like better? Sure. I'm sure Salome is over it. Like she's like, yo, I'm just Salome is just head down. Like I'm here to compete. Like whatever happened,
Yeah.
happens. Like you know what I mean? And so that's kind of how I feel about the situation. Like I said, it's very nuanced and like it's kind of mixed for me just because, I can see what uh this situation is doing for the sport in general. I think it's helping it move in the right direction. I'm also friends with, Leia, so I always try to see
Yeah.
stuff from her point of view, but also it kind of sucks for Salome too, because like to get accused of that and, to say like, hey, that was just like just for my
Right.
skill, like, you know what I'm saying? And not to be accredited, that kind of sucks, but I'm sure Salome's over. I haven't
Right.
met Salome, but like I can just probably tell from her demeanor, like it's like, all right, just another Tuesday, back to business. My results will speak for you. She's very the type person like let my results and my
Yeah.
play speak for themselves. Like even with her questionable line calls
That's
or
the biggest game
whatnot.
ever
Like
for her.
I
But
know
yeah.
Salome. Yeah, yeah. I think Salome knows that it doesn't matter. Like I think in her heart or whatever, this is just how she competes and she sees it. Like she may have really like like physically thought she saw it
Right.
in
Yeah.
or out or
Yeah.
whatever, and she's just gonna move forward. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's kind of like my whole take on the whole
Yeah, no, I
situation.
appreciate that. I know you got to tiptoe around that a little bit because of relationships, but I too praise Leia for because without people like her, change doesn't occur. You need
Yeah,
leaders. She's a leader, and she's putting herself out there,
yeah.
and she does it in a way where
Hmm.
um, she's not going to tiptoe around it. She's going to be straightforward and say how she feels,
Yeah,
and that's a great thing. So I praise her on my Instagram. I thought it was awesome what she's doing to bring light to situations and make change. I and once one
yeah,
person does
yeah.
it, that's when you get the followers. That you get everyone else who's gonna come. You know.
Exactly, exactly. So yeah, I mean, I know, like could have been done better. Yeah, does it make Leia look a little bit like a whiny baby? Maybe, probably, but also at the same time, like, yo, like yeah, Leia
Yeah.
speaks her mind in her heart. Um, uh, and she's gonna say what she's gonna want to say. I will say that apology though, like you could tell
Yeah.
she's like
Definitely
reading
reading.
from like a
Definitely reading.
card or prompter or something, and she's doing a little PR there. I don't know if that was what she wanted to do or if that's what her agent came up with or if the PPA came up with, But I am glad that it came out or whatever, and I'm glad the situation is kind of unfolded, like, and I'm excited to see kind of what comes out of it, like, months or years down the
It's
road for
funny how
pickleball in
people
general.
complain about people not apologizing, but then they complain about the apology because it wasn't apologetic enough. It's kind of funny to me. Like she apologized.
Yeah, well, yeah, she apologized. I mean, but it's kind of the thing, right?
Right.
It's like, do you mean it? It's hard because people are bad at, truly being apologetic
Right.
and empathizing, it's a skill that's pretty hard to
And we
do, to
know
be quite
Leia's not an
honest.
apologetic person, so it's kind of like weird to see. It's like why?
Right.
I mean, she's a model of strength, Leia, and to
Yeah.
see that, it's like, oh, okay, it's kind of, but it is what it is. I think it was a good thing she did it, and
Yeah.
I think good will come out of it. I'll just say that. Um,
Yeah,
so I want to
definitely.
share with
Definitely.
you. Uh, I want to know your biggest pet peeve of pickleball, especially PPA events. I'm going to give you mine. Okay, my biggest pet peeve
Okay.
when watching these on the stream is the pros having to chase pickleball balls, like contorting themselves under the bleachers, like trying to grab the ball. Like these are professional athletes playing a game for which money's, and then they're under the bleachers trying to get the ball. Like, why don't they barricade those things up? Well, let me ask you your take on that because that drives me nuts seeing that. And then talking about a momentum killer. What is your first of all? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think it's kind of crazy too, but I find it absolutely hilarious. I think like when it happens, like I think it's so funny. Partly is
Right,
because I
right.
know some of these pros. So like if James has to go stretch underneath and get a ball, I'm like, that's
Yeah,
right, James. Yeah, you little baby. Go get that freaking ball. So in my head
yeah.
it's funny to me. But yes, from a spectator who's just getting into the game, don't know these people or whatnot, yeah, it can seem absurd. Like what a laughing stock. Like these professional players has to go grab their own balls or whatever. But I, yeah, I mean that's just where it is for me. I think I find it quite entertaining. Yes, it's a momentum killer, but um, yeah,
It, it,
it's a
it's
good
it's
chuckle
it's
for
definitely
me.
fun.
Like,
The reason why it's a pet peeve is because I just hate to see him do it. But you see the cool thing about it. Usually, you'll
yeah,
see is that they'll interact with the fans because it's right there. So there's that kind of fun
yeah,
stoppage of the game.
yeah.
So as far as what your pet peeve is, what we like, or not even pet peeve, but what would you like to see improve with the PPA to make it better?
Improve with the PPA. Oh man, that's kind of tough to say because it's kind of dependent,
Right.
right? Some
Sure.
events are
Sure.
better than others, right? Um, I think like maybe the food options, maybe. Some
You
of them
mentioned
have
that,
good
yeah,
food
too.
trucks
Yeah,
and
you
stuff
said.
coming up, but you're at the event and sometimes you're hungry and you don't want to leave. Getting back in, you came early to find this amazing parking spot. Like, there could be some better food options at some of the tournaments. Some of them are great, some of them not so much. That's like one thing. And then uh I mean, this is also venue specific too, but some places are way better for like just to like
Oh,
sit around and lounge around, like with
right,
shade and whatnot. Some of them are not so great. And right now, I think my biggest pet peeve though, and it's fine. It's a pet peeve, but I understand why they're kind of doing it. But now it's you have to pay extra to get on the main court to go watch some of the pros. Like before, you could kind of just sit wherever, or you
yeah,
can get in and watch while you're waiting for your next match to start. And now you got to pay to go, right? And kind of just sucks. Like you paid what feels like a lot of money to
right,
travel there for the entry fees and what in between your games you want to maybe watch some pros play, and for you to have to pay something else additional on top or not able to watch kind of sucks. It takes away from the experience a bit. And so that's kind of like a bigger pet peeve of mine. Some other improvements I'd like to see is just, I mean, obviously this is not necessarily feasible, but to have some screens, like
oh,
TV
good idea.
screens around like the venue. So if your court, you can look at your division, and if a match is being played, it says being played, upcoming, so you
Right,
kind of know, like, instead of trying to find my phone all the time, I can just look at a screen, kind of like at an airport.
yeah,
Look
right.
at the screen, like, oh, this is my where my next this is the gate. Those things would be nice. Obviously, like maybe in the future, that's a logistical thing, a technological thing, but
Yeah, I was
that'd
in
be
a
nice to
USA
see.
pickleball tournament here in Connecticut, and they had a table, and they had that, but it was like a little laptop screen. So everyone's gathered around this little laptop screen.
Yeah, laptop screen. Yeah, we did that here in Tulsa. Our first large tournament, we called it the Tulsa Pickleball Classic. It was only one, but it was a large TV screen
Oh
on
yeah,
casters. We brought it next to the tournament desk, and they would show like, where the courts are, like a little
yeah,
court map. It showed like the designation of who's coming up or whatever. You just plug that into a laptop. I mean, it is a little bit more work because you don't have it fully automated just yet, but someone kind of has to update the spreadsheet and talk. But it's kind of nice. So because if you do that well, then like let's just say your battery in your phone dies or whatnot, or for whatever reason, like you stop getting text messages. Sometimes service is horrible at some of these places, and you don't know if you get your text. You're worried. You can just kind of go to a screen and look, and be like, okay, all right, this is where I'm at. It's coming up soon, and you can kind of rest easy a bit instead of being
yeah.
anxious waiting for your next match.
Um, so
Yeah.
Will, we're going to be wrapping up here in just a moment, but I do want to ask if there's anything that you wanted to plug, any shows, anything that you want to kind of close this with.
No, not really. I mean, obviously, if you don't listen or follow Chris and myself, on the Pickleball Studio or on my own channel, Pickleball Will, definitely give us a follow there. Listen to our podcast, and if you, I don't know, see us at tournaments or whatnot, say what's up because I don't know how much longer this is gonna be where I can kind of, uh, I guess, interact with the peoples. Like, I think it's gonna be tough for Chris. He's already like
Right.
a star,
No
like going
pictures, no
in.
pictures.
People are like, "Oh my gosh, it's Chris." Yeah, no pictures, like. But I don't know. I think I think that's pretty much it, man. That's pretty much it. Follow us on our channels.
Well,
That's
it
it.
is absolute pleasure. Obviously, I watch you guys all the time. Big fans of your content. I think you bring a lot to the community, and you set a great example for other content creators like myself to kind of emulate. So I really appreciate that.
No, man, appreciate you. Appreciate you coming into the game and elevating pickleball.
Yeah,
Honestly, us, the content creators, I honestly think we're like the lifeblood of pickleball, like right now in the future. Like, I don't think it's where it would be without us making content
right.
about it,
Awesome.
you
Well,
know?
thanks again, Will, and have a
Yeah.
great day. Take care, man. See ya.
All right. See ya.